Well, what's up, everybody? Episode, I think, 17. We're almost at 20. And so, fun fact, if I hit 20 podcasts, well, when I hit 20 podcasts, this will be, you're technically in the top 1% of people who ever podcasted regardless of views, because most people give up at 3 and then don't make it to 10.
Okay.
And so once you hit 20, you're in the zone. Here with my buddy Andrew of Hart and Hustle. Andrew, you want to introduce yourself real quick?
Yeah, my name is Andrew Hartje. I'm the owner and physical therapist of Hart and Hustle, Rehab, and Performance, located in Creekside, Gahanna. Fresh on the start and really excited.
Yeah, and so that's where we are right now. We're in his cool little office. I actually was here a couple weeks ago. Andrew and I did a photo shoot. Check me out on Google. Hart and Hustle, holding an awesome squat. But Andrew was kind enough to run me through kind of like a tune-up. We did some dry needling, which was my first time doing that in the low back area. And
how are you feeling after that?
Great. I actually was thinking about this yesterday while I was coaching. I haven't had any low back or hip issues. And the only reason I noticed it yesterday is because I hadn't been feeling any.
Sure. Yeah.
So I've been feeling good, and that is with Hell Week and everything.
Yep.
So Andrew is also a coach at OrangeTheory with me, and we just finished Hell Week, and we both did 4 out of the. You did 4?
I did 4, and
did
then
4.
coached. I mean, I think my class total was probably, like 18 for the week, including like what I coached and took, which I'm sure is either there or higher than that.
Yeah. So the fact that I did Hell Week and don't have any hip issues, and plus there's a lot of jumping and sprints and different things. And so I'm actually feeling good, and I hadn't thought about that until yesterday. And then I hadn't made the connection that I did dry needling a week or 2 ago. And so, thumbs up so far. But yeah, super glad to have Andrew here today. What's cool about what Andrew's been doing is he has just started building his own practice, and I'd love to get a little more into that and kind of how you started it and, where you're at right now and where you hope to be. So maybe a little bit of origin story first.
Yeah. Origin story was kind of unique. I was, so I started my physical therapy career in Columbus. I moved to Indiana, then I moved to Maryland, and I was a clinic director in Maryland at this company called Rehab to Perform, very fitness sport focused company. And I was working out at an LA Fitness there.
Yeah.
And nice space, had like a fitness area, pool, which was great, and then basketball courts too. So was really good except for one thing, and that was deadlifts. Okay. So they had like hexagon weights, so it's not like the bumper weights, but like pretty sharp edges.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
So like as you're setting up, you have to like line the plates perfectly. If they're off, then when it hits the ground, it's gonna like roll or rotate.
Yeah.
So like I caught a couple off my shins, and I was like, all right, I gotta figure something out. So I was like, well, instead of considering another gym, I'm just gonna build a deadlift platform. Mm-hmm. So I was building a deadlift platform, and as I'm doing it, it was in my basement. So I was like, The Rock has the Iron Paradise.
Yes.
And so I'm like, okay, if I'm going to start to build something in my basement, this is going to have an epic name. So I was just like kind of going through some stuff. And, my last name is Hartje. So I was like, I wonder if I could do a play on. And then the idea of a heart chamber came, like heart chamber. You got 4 chambers in the heart. Yeah. So the logo on my back here actually.
Check it out.
Yes. I drew the logo.
Oh.
Yes.
You can draw?
I can draw.
Nice.
I can draw.
Okay, cool.
I often like to have reference.
Sure.
Do you have any art background?
No, I'm actually basically disabled as an artist.
Like if you said like Andrew, draw this, like I'm in trouble. But if you were like, hey, here's a picture, do your best rendition of this picture. So I took like took a heart and then like kind of a barbell along with it. Took the idea. There was like one with a sword in the heart.
Oh, okay.
And so I was like, you know what? I could throw a barbell through it instead of a sword.
Sure.
So that was kind of
more relevant.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, this to build a deadlift platform takes stages, right? It was you're going plywood, you're going horse stall mat. So I'm working late into the evening one night, and my dogs, there's like a bell on the door to the back door.
Okay.
And like whenever they need to use the bathroom or whenever they're bored, they hit the bell and I come running. So they know bell.
Well trained.
Yes. Yes. So it was like 10:45. I'm an early bed person, so like I'm up past my bedtime, working away at this deadlift platform, and the bell rings. I'm like, okay, and then I look. Sarah's downstairs. Both my dogs are downstairs. It's like, okay, like, you know, what's going on?
Yeah.
And Sarah's like, someone's in our house, and I was like, you know, so I scream. I'm like, I scream. I'm like, get out of our house, you know. And then all of a sudden, like, I hear footsteps coming down our steps.
No.
Yeah.
What?
And Sarah, like, had her phone. She looks up on the steps, and she's like, I'm going to call the cops. And, like, you know, you're in fight or flight mode, right? And I would like to say, like, I had all these tools around me. Like, I was, like, hiding behind a door.
Like a screwdriver ready to give some jabs.
So this dude comes down and like he's like looking around and then then I like ran and got in his face and I was like, you need to get out of here. And then he looked and he was like, really? And that was his only words. And I was like, this is what's you know. So then he like went back upstairs and then as he's leaving through the door, he like ushered my dogs back in. So like this is the weirdest like break-in I've ever seen, you know.
So the dogs went out.
Dogs were like going up the stairs with him because my dogs know no strangers, and like he like helped them back in the house so they weren't gonna follow him out of the house.
What?
Yeah, it was wild. So you know, long story short, like my neighbors at the time, like they had maybe a friend of a friend who was stopping by, and I think he was confused on which house he was in. So it ended up being like a lot less harmless than yeah. So anyways, all that whole story. So I had the deadlift platform and had the logo, and I'm a thinker. I'm creative, and you know, one day while working out, I do my best thinking in the shower or working out.
Okay,
just
nice.
You know, where my mind can go. And I thought, you know, the name, like I was like, Sarah, what about Hart and Hustle? Like I like the name Hart and Hustle, and I think that for me, it just kind of embodies personally like my approach to anything in life. Like you know,
sure.
I get inspired. I am passionate about something, and then you got to put in the work. And I think that can kind of carry through. And what I see how the field of physical therapy and healthcare really is evolving is people seek services because they are passionate about what they're doing. Like people are not going to come to you like, make my knee better. It's, hey, I'm enjoying being part of a community at OrangeTheory, and I feel like I have purpose. I feel like I'm able to do what I need to do as a parent. I'm able to be, you know, involved in athletics socially with friends. And so when that starts to get taken away from them, that's usually when the action happens. And so I think it starts with heart, and then after that, like it's a commitment that you got to kind of put in the hustle too. So that was kind of the origin of the logo on the deadlift platform, and then the name too.
Nice, that's good. I hadn't really thought too much about the name. I mean, I knew it was a play on your last name a little bit, but the dichotomy of the passion versus the grind and having to have both to sort of achieve the results you're looking for, that's very good.
Yeah.
And I think that is a good metaphor for the journey of the PT practice, because where you start is definitely not where you end.
For sure.
If you put in the work and if you have the passion to see the work done. So that's very cool. So in terms of clientele, who are you looking to help out?
Yeah. So, you know, I say that we are a fitness-focused physical therapy company, and we tailor our services to individuals who are active, so active athletes, adults, or people who want to become more active. And, you know, my approach is something that I think is hopefully going to continue to catch steam, is more like educating of, hey, okay, this is what you're having trouble doing. Okay, let's talk about what needs to be done from a mechanical standpoint, like how does your body need to be able to do the tasks you need to do? Mm-hmm. And then kind of talking through our strategies, whether they're exercise, whether it's manual, whether we're going into the dry needling and other interventions, and saying, okay, here is why we're doing what we're doing. And most importantly, I want people to walk away with, okay, if something like this happens, because I'm not treating you to never have hiccups or bumps in the road.
Sure.
But if something like this happens, how can I remember kind of what we went through and some of the progressions that we made? And I may not be able to pick up right where I left off, but I know enough about our journey to say, okay, maybe I need to take a few steps back and then I can get, back onto my journey. So I think just that, like, empowering and educating are two really big emphasis of our treatment strategy here at Hart and Hustle.
Okay, gotcha. So what happens if someone comes to you and they say the thing, make my knee get better? They have a reason for it. They're missing out on something, but they're not interested in education. And so maybe they're having an issue sticking with their prescribed exercises or the program. How would you go about encouraging them to find the value in education?
Yeah. Well, I think first of all, like a main approach that we use is this idea of like testing and retesting. So sometimes when people come in, they may or may not, like, okay, you might have pain, you might have difficulty doing something, but sometimes it takes like hitting something really challenging where you're like, oh, one side of my body is operating this way and can do this test, but this other side, it's not producing the same results. So for some people who are more, like focused on this like specific,
results.
Yeah, result. Yeah. Uh-huh. That could be very results focused as far as the testing goes. I think that the conversation, like when you're talking with somebody, if you come in here, it can be like, it would be very sterile if it was just like, hey, do these exercises. The importance is getting to know people. And I think that as you develop that relationship and conversation, like it should become very natural to figure out like, okay, what are you passionate about? And I think that if you don't connect on those types of things, I don't know that the long-term outcomes are going to be what you or what I would want for the long term.
Yeah. Yeah. That was something I realized when I first became a personal trainer, is how much of almost like a therapy person you become to them.
Yeah.
Because they're coming to you in a basically saying, hey, I'm insufficient in this manner. Help me get there.
Yeah.
And become, more proficient. And there's that sort of leap of faith and trust. And because of that, they start sharing more just about their personal lives and that sort of thing. And so to your point, I think if you're able to just connect with them and learn about what they're interested in or what holds them back or just mental blocks in their life, they start working through those things as they work on the the physical part of it as well. And so it becomes kind of this spiritual journey as they recover.
Well, and we're not machines or we're not robots. Although we have parts, like it's not, oh, if you do this thing, it's going to work every time. That there are aspects of, hey, what's going on from a sleep standpoint? What's going on from a nutrition, recovery? What are your relationships looking like? All of those things impact not only who you are as a person, but how you physically perform. And so I think that if you neglect all those things and I just go in and, oh, your knee hurts, so I'm going to dial in right to your knee. I think that you miss a lot of the big picture. I think that in part is why some people have had not so great outcomes with physical therapy,
right? Because
they're, okay, your knee hurts. Here are 5 cookie cutter exercises. Take these, do them. People were like,
see you in 6 weeks.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So,
yeah, that can be tough. And, if someone goes through a breakup and then they're not sleeping very well,
right?
And they've also had this issue that they've been wanting to work on for a while, and now they have some free time, so they come in. They also gotta work through those things, because if they're not sleeping well, they're not getting as much growth hormones, so they're not recovering.
Their stress hormones super high. Yeah.
Yeah. So there can be a lot of things, and even if you just like shine a light on that, oh, you're right, I haven't been sleeping as well. Maybe I really do need to get to the bottom of my breakups so that I can start making more progress in the physical space as well.
Right.
That's pretty cool. Question that I mentioned asking you before we started was, people often turn to the internet for their fitness journey. How would you recommend people sift through all the millions and millions of tutorials and programs on YouTube, especially if they're new to the space?
Yeah. Well, it's a very complex thing, because when I first started as a physical therapist, the social media aspect and the videos and instructions and things like that were just starting to hit the surface. And so at that time, a lot of people that you would look to on that, you had people that were like well versed, and then over time, it became more and more saturated. So
right.
Now, you have so much information. Someone's telling you, hey, do this exercise like this. And then someone may be saying, hey, if you do this exercise like that, that's going to hurt this. And there's a lot of conflicting information. It can be overwhelming. But it also is nice to, in the same breath, to be able to, do some research on your own and invest in your own outcome. And so, I think that like one of our values is solutions first. So I always credit people who are like, hey, I've looked up some of these things, I've tried some of these things, versus someone that's like, all right, you just tell me what to do, tell me what to do. So, to answer your question, I think that as you are sifting through that information, I think to not just hone in on one post, but to for instance, I post on social media. So if it's a topic that's interesting to you, great. I would dive into a couple more and just see, okay, how is this information being presented? What kind of education am I getting? Are things making sense? I think it's never a bad thing to, whether in the comments or through messaging, to ask questions.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Have dialogue with either the creator, which hopefully they're able to have dialogue about the information that they present, or other people who are interacting with that piece. And so those would be two of the biggest things that I would say is like, don't just hit on one piece. Take a bigger selection and just see, even if it maybe doesn't directly pertain to what you're doing. Hey, is there consistency in what's being posted?
Sure.
And then not being afraid to interact with it. So when I am posting, I do a lot of posting on Instagram and YouTube. YouTube's more my longer forms, and so on that I'm giving more education on, hey, when this activity, if you can't do this is how you can slide it back. If you're feeling good on this is how you can progress it. So I try to give more information that puts people in the driver's seat a little bit more. Instagram, sometimes it's a little bit more short form, a little bit more catchy, but I'm always happy to, if I'm posting something, I better be confident to be able to help people who either need it to be scaled back or scaled forward.
Yeah, definitely. That's a good point. One of the things I see a lot on social media or YouTube, where at least people are kind of bickering, is compound exercises over isolation exercises.
Yeah.
And, some people be like, well, but what if you're weak in one area? You have to do isolation exercises. Is there any way we can sort of squash that beef a little bit? I mean, you probably need a little bit of both, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So I think it is very, very time. Like, for instance, a knee extension. So the pendulum has swung to where at one point it was, hey, knee extensions are really bad for your knees. And then, same thing with knees over toes. There was a point where under no circumstances do your knees ever pass your toes. And then it was, oh, your knees have to pass your toes in order to get a good squat. And for me, there are very few times where I am giving absolutes, where it's do not do this or do this. I view exercises as tools and as dials. So everything is, you can either dial up or dial back. And that is very dependent on the individual, right? So for instance, squat. If you're doing a squat and you have all sorts of limitations on ankle joint, knee joint, hip joint, and you are not able to get into a position where your quads can be adequately loaded with your body weight, but you're able to tolerate a seated position where, you can attach a band and go more into that isolated. Well, maybe for that person, as we work on some of those, the ankle, hip, knee, I want to continue to help them get their quads stronger. So I'm going to do some isolated work at that point. Isolated work oftentimes is, the argument is it's less functional. For instance, on a knee extension, if you're kicking a soccer ball, great, you're going through this motion. But other than that, how often are you doing that?
Sure.
But it is a great exercise when it comes to isolating and strengthening your quad, which is very important in your rehab. So again, I do think it very much depends a lot on, what's an individual's goals, what are limitations, and how are you playing within that field using those dials.
Gotcha. Yeah, great answer. So a few months ago, I can't remember how long ago, I got a corrective exercise specialist certification through NASA.
Nice.
And one of the key principles they really honed in on was just how everything's connected. Through the human movement system, you could be experiencing pain in one area, but it could be caused to an overactive or overly lengthened muscle in another area that is pulling this, which is, causing pain here or whatever. One of the things that they talked about, though, that I've heard some pushback on, so like, for example, if I do a lot of chest press and I get, huge pecs or something, the idea was if you have too much imbalance in your pecs, you might cause your shoulders to round in, you not get rounded shoulders, that sort of thing. And then that would be bad. Obviously, you have worse posture. And I think the argument is that your pec muscles would be overactive and a little bit shortened, causing that to pull. But like if I'm just sitting here, my pecs aren't flexed or that sort of thing. So is that real? Like, can you work a muscle group too much that it causes, rounding of the shoulders or something like that, some sort of poor posture? Or is that really not so much something that people have to worry about? Does that make sense?
Yeah. So there's like a specific name for some of these, and it's like upper cross, lower cross, where certain muscles are shortened, certain muscles are lengthened. And, I think that for me, when it comes to the element of posture, I think that posture for me is a very variable term. So, the idea of like your chest, proud, your shoulders back, your head nice and tall, like if you really walk around like that, like people will kind of laugh at you. Like,
it looks like you're peacocking.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. It's like not the most natural position. And so for me, posture is the ability to change position. So, if I'm sitting down for a while and I'm in this rounded position, am I able to, counter for a bit of time and assume different postures? Now, there is an element of like, hey, if you're doing nothing but, pec strengthening and you're neglecting everything that works in the other direction, your muscles are probably going to have a tendency to kind of like at even a resting position just due to increased muscle tone. You might get a little bit more there. But that's where I would say that balance is an important key. So if that's something that you're doing that, okay, hey,
maybe do some rows.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. There are some things I can do to counter. And then the most important thing is varying your posture throughout the day. So if like, I would argue that individual that is seeing like a change in like the shoulders rolling forward, like I would question how much they're on a computer and they're texting or doing things that are, because I think you're gonna find more that time is going to influence your posture.
Almost like erosion, where you're just like here for extended time. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah,
gotcha. Okay, yeah, I that was just something because when I was going through the cert, it really made it seem like most of what they talked about was, people who sit at a desk for a long time, low back issues, that sort of thing. But they also kind of made it seem like if you do too much of one exercise, regardless of the area, you could overdevelop and then cause weakness in the other area, even if you aren't working on that exercise and you're just sitting like regular. I was like, really? Because like if you're not flexed, it's really not pulling on it. So really just have a balanced workout and you won't experience anything like that. And if you can, get up from your desk, walk around, do some stretches.
Yeah.
That sort of thing.
And I think the danger with it is that would cause maybe some people to be afraid to train their chest. You know, like
sure.
People that are like, oh my gosh, well, I don't want my chest to be too tight and for me. So then they're going to like under-train muscles that are good to train.
Yeah. Well, and a lot of posture is also genetic, right? Like, you know, because bones are different sizes. People just have different structures to their skeleton.
Yes.
And so
spine is a huge, like some people tend to have a little bit more, a little bit more bend to their middle backs. You know, genetics definitely plays a role. But I would say that honestly, the biggest thing is what you're doing with habit in the majority of your time.
Cool. So you're building your own practice right now. What has that process been like? I've been around for some of it, so I have an idea, but you know, part of starting your own practice is you're a little bit of an entrepreneur as well. So what has it been like putting that hat on, and what was it like starting the journey, and how are you feeling now?
Yeah. Well, it's been wearing multiple hats. The biggest thing was like, even as before I launched, my brain was so like already thinking, planning, resourcing. So when I like stepped away from we'll call it the corporate physical therapy setting, I was able to kind of hit the ground running at a good pace.
Was that due to planning or like how come?
Yeah, I think that exposure, like I talked about with being in Maryland, I was a site director for a company that I think did an exceptional job with connecting with the community, with carving out their own brand. And so with that, I was able to step into a role that kind of took me beyond just patient care, although I saw quite a few patients, but it allowed me to like think outside the box with those types of things. So being exposed to that allowed me once I was able to launch it to hit the ground running. And hats that I wear, some of them are a little bit more challenging than others. Like building a website, it was awful.
I hear you.
Yes. Thankfully, I had a great photographer and great people to help make it look good because of the work that was being done there. But marketing is a big one. So I have really made it my intent to be as plugged into the community as possible within the first month. We have hosted a couple free clinics going over squats and how to improve and how to adjust squats, and just giving people education and empowering individuals, which is what we want to do with our practice. I did a couple presentations at like schools, so the Metro School and Eastland and Fairfield, so they're more like career services. And with that was just kind of sharing my journey, sharing things that if I were re-entering and going through those same steps again, maybe what would I change? What would I do different? I always want people to be able to learn from my mistakes versus, having to figure out that kind of stuff on their own.
Sure.
Always good to invest in those that are up and coming. We did a passed out candy for a trunk or treat.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's been fun. I've made some relationships with different healthcare professionals, primary care physicians, chiropractors, other trainers in the area. And again, it just is, I'm approaching with how can I be a resource to help you do what you're doing. And I think that if that mindset is taken, I think that it will, you sow the seed and things will grow over time. So, that's been a big hat to wear.
Definitely. Well, and that is the beautiful thing about the health and wellness umbrella. I mean, it's so broad. You've got everything from cryo to, chiropractors, nutrition, whatever. And so you can find something that just is only slightly related. Be like, hey, well, if you know anyone that's looking for a physical therapist,
right?
Can I set my cards up here?
Yes.
That sort of thing. And so you really have a large pool to sort of throw your line in, so to speak, which is really nice. one thing I wanted to make sure we talked about was, how do you approach your training? And is there anything you're training for, or is there like a camp you're working through right now? What do you got going on training wise?
Training's been fun, especially with starting a business. Like the first few weeks, it was like, just move, like try to stay active.
Uh-huh.
Now that I have begun to like regulate a schedule a little bit more, knowing that in the true life of entrepreneurship, there's not really a firm schedule, but
moments of stability.
Yes, exactly. So, I would say that my own, like my fitness approach is I tend to work in movement patterns. So like push, pull, hinge, squat. I end up doing like a push, a pull, a leg day. And then recently I've kind of adapted more of a speed day where I am doing things that are like plyometric or jumping in nature, moving quickly, running, sprinting fast, moving at a quick pace. As you age, I think that one view may be like you go from training for physique to more of functional training.
For sure.
But for me, it's hey, I enjoy being strong, but I also want to be able to be mobile and move quick. And I know that, being in the field as you age, moving quick becomes more and more of a challenge. So that's been something that I've prioritized lately, is just setting some focus time to move powerfully and explosively.
Yeah.
Try to get cardio in. I'm not quite to your speed, your level. But we talked about this the other week. But the pump and run
signed up this morning.
Did you really?
Yes, I did.
Well, I gotta get my act on.
Uh-huh.
That's because that's March
2nd, Sunday.
Yeah. So I'm excited to be training. Like I always want to train. That's a challenge for me. Is I am somebody that I will eat the same breakfast and the same lunch every day.
Yes.
Eating is more for me. Like I enjoy good meals, but it's like I am a routine person and I love the routine. I love the grind.
Right there with you, buddy.
So while I have goals, my goal is always to get better, but it is nice to have, hey, I got this event coming. Like I'm going to totally 180, but
please.
I like part of the Hart Hustle, the grind is, so I came out of school, I had $93,000 of student loan debt.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my gosh. And I actually, it's funny because I went to a buddy of mine who was a dentist in Indiana, and I was like, dude, I've got a lot of debt. I was like,
questioning my life decisions. Yeah.
I was like, I have $93,000. And he was like, I have $500,000.
Whoa.
And I was like, okay, so that comparison game.
That's some perspective.
Yeah, you can't ever really play that comparison game. But for me, I paid off in 3 years.
Wow.
And it was something that, I say that not to like brag about like income or anything, but for me, I was so obsessed. And when I paid it off, like Sarah and I, I bought a WWE wrestling belt. Like it's just a stupid purchase. We popped champagne bottles, and it was fun.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, that's a big accomplishment.
Yeah. It was great, but I also within moments was like, okay, what's next? And to me, it was more motivating each week as I was hacking away at that number and okay, each month I was very fortunate. COVID stopped all the interest, so that was very beneficial. While some people didn't pay, I was like, I'm going to use this opportunity.
I started paying extra during COVID because there was no interest. I was like, I can pay away all this.
Exactly. But for me, I became obsessed with the process, and that really, fortified what has been kind of my approach to life. But being obsessed in the mundane and the small tasks and the small wins, and that progress versus goal.
Yes. How do you celebrate your progress when you're not at the goal yet? Because I know sometimes you can be it's easy to be hard on yourself when you're not where you want to be and you're like, damn, I should be there.
Right.
Oh, I wish I was there.
Yeah.
So how do you sort of separate that? Do you have those thoughts?
I'm a big visual person. So for me, I am in Excel all the time and probably am the worst Excel person. I'm probably could use formulas better, but as I'm watching numbers and just I think to show where you're at and give a visual, even if you are moving it a millimeter, just to be able to see that visual of the movement. Like I do it with numbers too. Like I just kind of track the numbers or track the progress, or if you want to do with graphs. And, I think that could be a strategy for some people, others it may be, setting certain like mini goals along the way. Hey, if once I get to this, but for me, I don't need it to be too, too artistic, just get it done.
Yeah. Nice. So with regards to just staying on the topic of, grinding it out a little bit, when you don't feel like doing it, obviously you still do it, but how do you power through that? You wake up, ooh, that pillow feels so nice.
Yeah.
I just don't want to do it. I'm not feeling it. I care about my goal, but today I just don't want to do it. How do you do it?
Yeah. Have you ever read the book Atomic Habits?
I'm aware of it, but I haven't read it.
It's a good read. But I think momentum is a pretty powerful thing. So on the days where I don't feel like doing things, I will set like super easy goal. Like, hey, I'm going to make breakfast. And then, okay, once I tackle, like, okay, I've made breakfast for the day. It's not super hard, even for me. But then I think that once you can start getting some like momentum and hitting some of those goals, you can kind of snowball that into like, okay, now I've had a productive morning. I'm ready to do whatever I got to do. And then just also knowing that, and I'll talk to patients and clients about this, but like every day doesn't have to be better than the last day.
Sure.
And if you go with that mindset, that could cause you to feel like a failure sometimes. So my best today, if I'm like, okay, I'm either going to give all or nothing, my best today is going to keep me on track for my goal better than if I was like, all right, either I got it better yesterday or I'm not doing anything at all.
Right, like an all or nothing sort of game.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think that sometimes just being okay with like, hey, I know my best today is my best today, but it doesn't necessarily match the numbers that I gave yesterday. And just playing that long game, I think that's something that I will frame my mind with.
Yeah, it's very similar to just being on the fitness journey, or I assume the PT journey as well. Like you're going to have days where your workouts aren't as good, whether it's due to sleep or whatever, or you're just not focused. And the great thing about it is the next day it's a clean slate.
Yeah, exactly.
And so, because I've been to the gym where there are days where it's like, okay, show up.
Yep.
You go. They're like, okay, cool.
Warm up.
I warm up. Cool. Get one set in. If you want, you can quit after this set. You can be done.
Yep.
But then you keep going. You're like, okay, I've done 4. Now like, okay, on to the next thing. You can quit after one set.
Yep.
You do 2 or 3. You're like, okay. And then you just take it one set, almost one rep at a time.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden, that momentum, kind of like we were talking about, builds up. And you're like, okay, I was actually at the gym for 1 hour. Was it my best? No, but I got it done. And I think I'm ready to do the next thing now. Like I'm ready to kind of get after the day.
Right. Yeah. And you play that, you can always say like, compare it. Okay. What I did an hour in the gym today, but depending on what you're comparing it to, okay, am I comparing it to a high performance day?
Right.
Okay. Maybe that's not necessarily matching the high performance day, but can I compare it to if I would have chose to lay in bed today? So I think that what you're comparing it to can always, you can frame that comparison to where, again, you're finding the wins in days that maybe you wouldn't find a win.
For sure. And a lot of times, like if we're taking an example in class, if we have a benchmark or someone's going for a PR and they don't get it, I'm like, well, Olympians don't get PRs every day.
Right.
They're still Olympians. They're still, I'm sure they wish they could, but otherwise there'd be a new world record all the time. You have to be comfortable with maintaining sometimes.
Yes.
Because sometimes you hit your genetic threshold, or sometimes you hit the threshold of your current training regimen.
Yep.
And if you want to make improvements, it's going to be taking it to the next level. But,
100%.
Don't be so hard on yourself if you're maintaining. You're not going backwards. So, that's good.
And there's I think that there's victories and sometimes like falling on your face, there's times where that makes the defeat or like the whatever you're trying to accomplish even sweeter when you've tried it and you fail, and you tried it and you failed, or you're not having the day. And then all of a sudden, once you get it, it makes that even more sweeter.
Yeah, for sure. Are you a Batman fan at all?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so in Batman Begins, the thing Alfred says to Bruce is, he's like, "Why do we fall, Mr. Wayne?" so we can learn how to get up, pick ourselves back up or whatever. You know, great little anecdote there. But you know, I feel like Batman, as far as fictional characters go, is like the epitome of like grind and get after it. You know,
and then you go two movies later, and he's making that jump, like the the Bane jump,
out of the pit. 100%.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so funny. Where are you hoping? What's your current goal right now with the practice? I know we got to wrap here soon.
Yeah, no, I think it just is, again, continuing to make an impact in the community. Like my clientele is definitely picking up, which is encouraging, and just getting feedback. Like early in the process, I'm all about feedback. So, you know, after every session, hey, did we meet your expectations? You know, what could be improved? And so just, again, falling in love with the process and making those small adjustments. You know, we're coming up in November. Definitely want to have some, you know, Black Friday, more on the injury prevention side. So people maybe who are doing pretty well, but maybe want to identify areas that they can fortify before something comes up. So that's
playing 5 to 10 years down the line.
Exactly. So that's going to be kind of a focus as we move into November and into the holiday seasons. But I'm also just excited about increasing like education opportunities. So I really enjoy connecting with different organizations, different people, hosting again those workshop types of things. So those will continue to be on the move.
Awesome, I love it. Well, one of the things I have been doing since the tune-up we went through is the one where my hands are against the wall and I hinge with the cross back lunge sort of thing.
All sorts of comments on that.
I love that. I love that. I do it before almost every run because, like I told you, I'm trying to make sure I'm engaging my glutes more so and building glute strength. And so I feel like that really helps me develop the mind-muscle connection and activate my glutes before I go for a run. So yeah, appreciate it, man.
You were one of the first that I videoed on that. So that exercise is entitled the Jake exercise. So if anybody has, if anybody's like, oh yeah, I saw Jake doing that exercise. So it definitely is a good one when it comes to getting that good glute stretching, good glute activation. So glad it worked out well for you.
Yeah, man. Worked out great. What are we looking at here? 327. Okay, perfect. Yep. Well, Andrew, man, you're natural. Thank you so much for doing this. If there's anything I can do to help you going forward, let me know. Thanks for hopping on the pod. You're always welcome on if you want to do another sode, but can't wait to see what comes of Hart and Hustle, man. Yeah, and if people want to get in touch with me, hart-hustle.com. I'm also on social media, Hart and Hustle PT or Andrew.HartcheDPT. Feel free. We talked about it earlier, but if you have questions on any content that I've created or would like to see content, have questions, any injuries, injury prevention, all sorts of services available. So I'd be more than happy to connect with you there. Yeah, and good videos on YouTube. Yes, definitely. Awesome. Cool. Later, everyone. Have a good one. Peace.